Welcome to the Diagnostic Clinic. I'm your lead physician for today's explainer, and we're going to perform a deep dive diagnosis on the exact symptoms of a failing exam answer in Cambridge computer science. Today, we are specifically focusing on the strategy to secure absolute top marks when dealing with SQL data manipulation language, or DML, aggregate functions. Now, if you're studying for syllabus 9618 or crossing over from foundational Cambridge syllabuses like 0417, 0478, 0983, 0984, or 2210, you already know that databases are a massive, unavoidable part of the curriculum. But let's be real for a second. What we are looking at today goes way beyond just writing a basic query. We aren't just learning code, we are deconstructing the exact strategies you need to approach these questions like a principal examiner diagnosing a past paper. You need to know what they are looking for, what makes them tick, and exactly where the marks are hidden. So, grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's get ready to transform your exam strategy.
So let's start with the ultimate question. Why do students lose easy marks on SQL DML functions? You might be sitting there thinking, wait a minute, sum, count, and AVG are literally the most straightforward functions in the entire database syllabus, right? You just add things up, count the rows, or find the average. It's basic math. But the reality of the exam room is a totally different beast. Let's look at two hypothetical patients in our clinic today. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Now, Alex is the kind of student who overloads their answer with raw computer science facts. They'll write a massive paragraph filled with every piece of SQL syntax they've ever memorized, but there is absolutely zero analytical depth. It's just a data dump. On the flip side, we have Sam. Sam rushes. Sam sees the word average, immediately writes down the AVG command, completely misses the command word requirements like evaluate or compare, and forgets to check the edge cases. We look at their past papers, and they are covered in red pen marks. Today, we are going to look at the exact reasons why candidates like Alex and Sam consistently drop easy marks. It is rarely because they don't know what the word sum means. It is entirely because of how they structure their answers, how they completely miss edge cases, and how they fail to meet the specific assessment objectives that Cambridge meticulously sets.
To fix these issues, we need a game plan. This explainer is built directly from principal examiner reports, breaking down our analysis into 4 key sections. 1. Theoretical foundations. 2. The procedural framework. 3. Critical analysis skills. And 4. Top examiner warnings.
Let's move right into Section 1, Theoretical Foundations, Building Conceptual Mastery.
Before we go any further, I need to give you a massive examiner alert. The reports state explicitly that candidates consistently confuse fundamental terminology. Top-performing students don't just memorize syntax. They exhibit connected, conceptual understanding. You absolutely must understand the underlying logic of what these functions actually do to a dataset before you even pick up your pen. So we must always define our terms. An aggregate function performs a calculation on a set of values and returns a single summarizing value. Think of it like taking a massive chaotic spreadsheet and collapsing multiple rows into one single, powerful, meaningful piece of data. It is the absolute foundation for data analysis. If an exam question asks you to explain the use of an aggregate function, starting your answer with this precise definition instantly shows the examiner that you are an expert. You aren't just guessing, you know exactly what you're talking about. Before we continue diagnosing these exam strategies, subscribe to our YouTube channel AC Exams at acexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. Click that subscribe button and hit the bell icon right now. It is the best way to make sure you never miss out on these crucial strategy sessions. Now, looking at this brilliantly illustrates what Cambridge is actually testing when they hand you that paper. They want to see your logical reasoning and analytical depth, not just a broad, superficial list of commands. Remember our student Alex who just data dumps facts? That's superficial breadth. The examiner doesn't care how many different SQL keywords you can cram into a paragraph. They care about whether you can logically explain why you chose AVG instead of sum for a specific contextualized problem. This is where you need to implement a framework, like the Peel framework. Point, evidence, explanation, link. You make your point about the SQL function, you provide evidence from the scenario, you explain how the aggregate function processes the data, and you link it back to the overarching goal of the database system. That is how you demonstrate true analytical depth. And this quote right here, straight from the source of the principal examiner reports, is absolutely vital. To hit those highest grade boundaries, to get that A star, you must demonstrate causal relationships and integrate these database concepts with other syllabus areas. You can't just think of SQL in a vacuum. For example, how does calculating a sum in SQL relate directly to the data types defined in your data dictionary? If your data dictionary specifies a very small integer size, your sum function is going to hit a wall real fast. Or how does using an aggregate function impact the efficiency of a program compared to, say, writing a massive iterative loop in Python or pseudocoder. Making those brilliant cross-topic connections is the cure to a failing answer. It shows the examiner you see the entire computer science ecosystem, not just isolated lines of code.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the procedural framework, unlocking the method mark strategy.
This procedural framework is what I like to call the method mark strategy. In the diagnostic clinic, this is your treatment plan. This is where examiners award points for your systematic process. Listen closely. Even if you make a silly syntax error, you can salvage major marks if your underlying logic is visible on the page. The crucial point here is the standardized 5-step sequence. Step 1, identify the key elements of the question. What is the command word actually asking? Step 2, apply the relevant principles. Decide logically if you need a count, a sum, or an AVG based on the context. Step 3, execute your analysis with crystal clear working. Step 4, verify your results against the constraints of the system. And Step 5, present them in the appropriate format. You must explicitly show your clear working and verify your results to capture every single available method mark. Think about our student Sam, who rushes. If Sam just applied this blueprint and actually wrote out the working instead of doing the math in their head, those red pen marks would instantly transform into green check marks.
So when you are tackling an exam question using that 5-step framework, your data interpretation skills must be razor sharp. You need to deconstruct the examination question like a surgeon. This involves extracting the right data, and sometimes Cambridge will throw you a curveball and ask you to extract data from binary representations if the question bridges topics across the syllabus. You then have to select the correct analytical framework, execute calculations with totally clear notation, and present your evidence-based conclusions with the exact correct terminology. If the command word in the prompt says evaluate, you absolutely cannot just describe, you have to weigh the pros and cons. You have to deconstruct what is actually being asked and map it perfectly to your analytical framework. Stop scrolling. Subscribe to our YouTube channel Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE, to excel in your Cambridge examinations. We've helped thousands of students improve by 2 to 3 grade boundaries. Join them right now by subscribing to at acetheexams_IGCSE and turn on all notifications so you never miss our weekly exam strategy sessions.
Now let's jump into Section 3, critical analysis skills, navigating higher order assessment objectives.
Okay, once you have the basic process down, we need to target the higher order assessment domains. These are those terrifying 8 to 10 mark questions that usually sit right at the end of the paper. These are the questions that literally make or break your final grade. Now, I want you to imagine we are doing a quick interactive data scan right now. Look at this slide. What's really interesting here is how it breaks down comparative analysis. To get full marks, you can't just list facts about 2 different approaches. You must identify similarities and differences, supporting each with concrete evidence. Notice the explicit requirement for comparative connectives. You need to use words like whereas, conversely, similarly, or on the other hand. If an examiner asks you to compare using an aggregate function like AVG in SQL versus calculating that exact same average on the client-side application using Python, you must explicitly contrast the 2 methods. You cannot just write 2 separate paragraphs that never interact. That's a massive flaw. You have to put them head-to-head.
Because ultimately, higher order tasks demand that you use those comparisons to draw conclusions about relative importance and provide justified recommendations. Imagine a 30-second speed writing challenge right now. If you were writing a PL paragraph, it is not enough to just say, approach A uses SQL to calculate the sum and approach B uses a while loop to calculate the sum. You have to link it back and conclude with, therefore, approach A is significantly more efficient and appropriate in this database context because it reduces network traffic and utilizes the database engine's optimized query processing. Boom! That justification is the key that unlocks the absolute highest mark bands.
Let's move into Section 4, Top Examiner Warnings, Avoiding the Most Common Pitfalls.
This is the most critical part of our clinic today. These are the specific symptoms of a failing answer identified directly by senior examiners. If you want to protect your marks, you need to memorize these 3 warnings right now. First, forgetting to check overflow. Let's say you are using the sum function on a massive data set of integers representing global bank transactions. Could the resulting number physically exceed the maximum value allowed for that specific data type in your database? Yes, examiners love testing that exact edge case. Second, failing to verify boundary conditions. What happens if you use the AVG function, but the data set is completely empty? Does it return a 0? Does it return a null value? Or does it crash and throw a fatal divide by 0 error? You have to know.
And third, writing answers that are not specific to the question's context. If the past paper is about a hospital database, your answer must actively talk about patients, doctors, and medical records. You cannot just give a generic answer about rows and tables. If you write a generic answer, the examiner will give you a generic, low grade.
I'm bringing this examiner alert back on screen for a second time because it's just that important. This is the ultimate cure for students like Sam who rush through the paper. Principal examiner reports reveal that candidates consistently confuse key terminology. If you jump into a complex analysis of SQL without actually defining your terms first, you are instantly bleeding marks. Never assume the examiner knows that you know what count does. State it explicitly and clearly. The count function tallies the exact number of records that meet the specified where clause criteria. Mark secured. Now you have the foundation to move on to the complex analysis without losing the easy points.
Now, to ensure you don't freeze up under the pressure of the exam clock, I highly recommend you utilize this memory hack recommended by subject specialists. Build your own mnemonic using the first letters of these key concepts to lock in that 5-step procedure we talked about earlier. Identify, apply, execute, verify, present. IAEVP. You could use something like, I always eat vanilla pudding, or intelligent analysts execute very perfectly. Whatever works for your brain. The whole point of this strategy is to have an automatic mental checklist. So when you flip the page and see a massive, intimidating SQL question, you don't panic, you don't rush like Sam, and you don't data dump like Alex. You just execute the system, step by step.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to look at the screen and honestly ask yourself this question. Look at your past study habits. Have you just been memorizing the syntax for sum, count, and AVG? Or are you truly ready to deploy the systematic reasoning, the edge case checking, and the deep contextual analysis that Cambridge examiners are actively hunting for? Remember the 3 rules that guarantee top marks. Decode the command word, apply the Peel framework, and manage your time so you don't miss the boundary conditions. Your pathway to top marks lies in structured logic, clear definitions, and flawless execution. Students who implement these computer science strategies see an average improvement of 2 grade boundaries, but only if they practice consistently with our weekly videos. Here's your final reminder: subscribe to our YouTube channel Ace the Exams at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. Subscribe right now to acetheexams_IGCSE and click that bell. Don't let another exam pass you by. Drop a comment below with your target grade for computer science and the biggest challenge you're facing. Our team responds to every single comment. Like and share this explainer with a study partner. Ace the Exams. Your Cambridge success starts here. See you next time.